began shooting on a remote beach on the east coast of New Zealand. It was a small film about a small community, but it was also the start of a journey that would take the legendary story of Paikea all around the world.
It's being hailed as the next big Kiwi movie. It's Whale Rider, adapted from Witi Ihimaera's novel.
The winner is...
You got your mascara on, it's going to run.
Can I get a ticket for Whale Rider?
It doesn't get much better than this for any star.
Picking a designer to make your dress for the Oscar Awards. Well, maybe not every performer is nominated.
All right, Keisha, here you go.
I was living in New York City in 1984 in an apartment overlooking the Hudson River. And one day I heard all of these helicopters whirring around the building and the noises of ships on the harbour, and looked out the window and saw that a whale had come up the Hudson River up to 46th Street. It brought to me all of those memories of those whale stories about Paikea and my ancestors. That visit coincided with the visit of my daughters to New York, and we went to see all of these movies, and at the end of one of these movies, Jessica said to me, "Daddy, why is it that the heroes are always boys and the girls are always there to yell, 'Help me, save me, I'm so helpless'?" And I realized that she was right. So I put both events together and wrote The Whale Rider.
When I was first aware of the book, it was in the 80s. It was in the late 80s, 88, 89, I think. And when I read it, it struck me that this was a universal story. You know, there was no doubt at all about the theme was something that would resonate wherever you were in the world, that you were looking at things about the clash of the traditional and the contemporary, that you were dealing with the role of power as to whether it was inherited or earned. You were looking at the role of women.
The relationship between a grandfather or a father figure and a girl child, where that man cannot love her or cannot appear to love her, although he loves her intensely, he can't support her. And I was equally fascinated by what makes a great leader, and the idea for me that leadership should present itself in the heart and mind and body and spirit of an 11-year-old girl was really fascinating and very, very timely.
Interestingly, at the time, many people said to me, "This will never get made. It's a Maori story." And, you know, I kept saying, well, it's a universal story. But it did take a long time.
This project had been in development for over a decade, and so I don't know that they were, you know, necessarily fired with enthusiasm that I would be the one to crack it. But after I did a little pass on the script and changed direction significantly from the work that had been done before, and the whole thing pretty much followed quite swiftly.
A very personal anxiety that John and I both had at that time was that we should make it with as much of a Māori component as we could. And luckily the film is a success, because had it been a failure, then a lot of people would have been pointing the finger and saying, well, you know, now it's because you didn't have a Māori director. Obviously Nikki was not Māori, but she was, of course, a girl or a woman.
I think what sustained me through the writing process was very much my connection to the heart of an 11-year-old girl. And I am pretty convinced, actually, it's because I was one. And it's such a beautiful time in a girl's life.
You've been smoking.
Says you.
Māori women have got to stop smoking. We've got to protect our childbearing properties.
11 was a time when you're just emotionally really honest and hugely compassionate. And I loved that about writing the character, that in these incredibly destructive things are happening to her, she keeps going. And she does not judge. She's the only person on the screen that doesn't judge her grandfather, because she's the only person in the story that deeply understands the burden that he's carrying, because she'll carry it herself. The one thing that was clear to me, if I was going to make this film, is that I needed the right girl. And I needed the girl. And that girl I wasn't going to find on a casting agent's books. We were going to find out there somewhere. And the person to find her was undoubtedly Diana Rowan, because she's peerless in the world at finding these children. She can see and feel a child's sort of emotional honesty, I think. In a room of 200 children, Diana will find the 5.
I decided I'd go around schools and literally I just go into the classrooms and I don't tell the children what I'm doing, and I request that the teachers don't.
I was passing notes, actually, in class. Me and my friends were like, oh, who's that lady? And oh, probably another school inspector. I'm like, oh, yeah. And then she started talking to my friend across the room, and I was like, why is she talking to Nadia? You know? And then they were like, oh, I know, you know, what's going on? And so, like, and then she comes up to me, and I was like, I want to write to them now, please, please. And then she's like, oh, so, what's your name? I was like, Keisha. And then she's like, oh, are you Māori? And I was like, yes. And then she was like, can you ride a bike? And I was like, yes. And I was like, oh, what does this lady want? You know, I was like, oh, okay, she's testing she's testing the ability of students at the school.
I thought there was a quizzical intelligence just when you see her, which was really interesting. And I sort of decided that I could look at her for 2.5 hours, no problems.
And then she turns to me and she's like, can you swim? And I was like I couldn't swim, but she'd like, you know, Di's very lovely, and, you know, she, you know, I was like, can you ride a bike? And I was like, yeah, and she's like, great. You know, she looks so happy, and she's like, can you swim? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then she's like, excellent. And I was like, oh, God, thank you. And then me and my friend walk into the office, and I was like, oh, my God, what if we have to, like, be Māori lifesavers or something like this? And, you know, what if we have to do a triathlon, and I've lied about this, and I'm going to have to tell the truth?
She was just very present. She wasn't projecting onto, will I get this movie and what will that mean in my life, at all. She was just hugely engaged in every task we gave them.
That's it now. Thank you.
Paka, at school we got to do a speech for this competition, and Miss Parata said we can do it on anything, or on a topic like where we come from and that.
I'll never forget seeing Keisha in her small group of girls and feeling that with this one we had found her. Keisha's reading was so genuine and so on the money that I felt that the search was over.
She's a child with feelings that she was very in touch with. And in the end, casting, like filmmaking, like life, is often about the simplest thing.
It's working, Paka! Paka, it's working!
I don't want you doing that again. It's very dangerous.
I remember the first day of rehearsal, and we did the scene where she answers the call of Nanny Flowers bringing the boys onto the marae, and we were improvising that sequence, and this is day one of working with her, and Nikki whispered in my ear to go for it.
Bye. You're a girl, go to the back.
And she stood her ground, and she stood her ground, and I just, in the end, I overpowered her, and I made her cry. And I grabbed hold of her, and I held her tight. And I whispered into her ear, and I said, are you all right? You all right? And she was sobbing. And I thought, oh, my God, we're not going to be able to do this. And I says, we're going to have to go that far. You're going to have to know that it's all right. Are you okay? And she goes, yeah. And then I put her down, and she wipes her eyes, and then she just looks up at Nikki, and she goes, what's next? And I just thought, whoa, what have we got here?
caballeros, introducing the 2004 Small Car of the Year, the Mitsubishi Colt.
The forecast, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. Driving pleasure in any weather.
Hi everyone. Monday's weather looks like this. It'll be fine and frosty in the east of the South Island. We have some cloud and drizzle in the west, increasing high cloud in the south. There's lower cloud for the north. The northeasterly should be strong along both coasts, and the drizzle in the west turns to rain as a front gets closer. 1 or 2 falls should sneak over the ranges into western parts of Southland and Otago. Fine and frosty for most of the North Island too. We have some cloud through Northland, just through the upper Coromandel, few light showers and some clearing cloud around Gisborne. After lunch it's fine and sunny in the east, but cloud starts to build up in other areas.
To perform at your best, you need iron, omega-3, protein, zinc and vitamin B12. Eating at least 3 to 4 red meat meals a week will help sustain your vitality and well-being, especially as you get older.
How am I looking, guys? We love to boogie. We love to boogie.
Nasty surprises. The building process can be full of them. So if you're thinking about building or renovating, best you give the team at Carter's Consulting a call. They can answer all the tricky questions like, do I need a plan? Do I need a permit? Where can I get ideas from? And how do I choose an architect or a builder? So for free, objective advice before you start your next project, call 0800 Building and have a chat to the team at Carter's Consulting. You and I.
She was born illegitimate in an Argentinian slum. By the time she was 20, she was a famous model and infamous femme fatale. By 32, she'd climbed a staircase of powerful men to become the most loathed and loved woman South America had ever seen. 1 year later, she was dead, and a legend was born. Evita, the musical phenomenon touring New Zealand from August. Book a ticket egg now.
Golden Horse. Golden Horse. Their songs are winning awards and a legion of fans. Their album is a classic in the making. So many great songs. Such a brilliant album. It's time you got Golden Horse.
At Pasco's, there's gold in the city at outrageous prices. 20 to 50% off all gold. This bracelet now $5.95. All gold wedding rings 20% off. These earrings half price. These pendants now $35 each. The spangle now $4.49. 20 to 50% off all gold at Pasco's. Shopping around for better returns on your investment? Call 5 Star Consumer Finance for rather impressive returns of up to 8.95% interest paid quarterly. 5 Star Consumer Finance. 0800 36 1010.
Mrs. Johnson, you'll be pleased to know that we can proceed with your surgery right away. Now, you do have hospital cover, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
Perfect if you've got the cover, and if not...
Now, you do have hospital cover, don't you?
No, we don't have any cover.
We can operate, but it will cost you around $15,000.
Can't afford that.
We'll have to put you on the hospital waiting list then.
Heart attacks, cancer. Trauma does not go on hold while you wait. It could be tragic. I thought I was bulletproof, but I had a heart problem. So call O'Donoghue Lindsay now.
There's a first time for everything.
Hey, Dawn.
But some things you just never get used to.
I'm a human before I'm a doctor. And no matter how many times I'm put in this position, I think I'll always be affected in this way.
Interns, tomorrow on 1.
The scene where you have Grant Rower and little girl and Grant practicing the toy. That was the house they used. Grant and his low socioeconomic group muddle around in there.
It's the authenticity of that location that actually has created the magic, you know, that people see on the screen. There was no other decision to make than to make it at Whangarā.
About half an hour from Gisborne, on the remote east coast of the North Island of New Zealand, Whangarā is the ancestral home of the Ngāti Konohi tribe. It has a permanent population of about 12.
Before I'd come onto the film, over the years, approaches had been made to Whangarā. And they were so jaded by these movie people. A different set of movie people every few years would come in and be, oh, wow, you know, we'll do this and we'll do this. And they were quite rightly very fatigued.
It was my job to drive down, have a meeting with them, explain where we were at with our development and what our anticipated schedule was. And I'd never done this before. I'd never really been on a marae before. And so with great trepidation, I flew down. I missed the turn-off. I ended up at Toliga Bay. I turned up at the marae an hour and a half late to find about 20 of the elder people there waiting for me very patiently. And they invited me in for a cup of tea, which of course is Maori for 10-course feast.
I was a wee bit worried about whatever might happen. And that was very hard to pin. First of all, I was worried about how my people would react to the people arriving down, and secondly, how we would cope with the intrusion on our privacy, and so on and so forth.
I could just see behind the eyes a little bit of the, you know, oh yes, here's another filmmaker from Auckland, we'll see what has to come from this. But, you know, I left that meeting at the end of the day with a solid commitment of their support, and that's how it came to be, you know. It was a partnership from that point forward.
With pre-production underway, the filmmakers were faced with a very unusual casting problem: whales.
I needed the whales to have a documentary level of realism, because the second the whales looked stupid or didn't feel right, or the audience felt something uncharacteristic about them, it would not only kind of blow the general filmmaking gig, but more importantly, it would blow the spiritual importance of those sequences in the film and everything leading up to them. And so, so again, no pressure.
Quite by chance, there was a Steinlager ad on TV which had a whale in it. And we did a little bit of research and found out that there were some new guys in town here in Auckland, Justin and the Glasshammer team. And so I arranged to meet them. They brought in their tape and we talked about, you know, the fact that they'd built this whale for the ad. And they filled me with confidence. You know, they came in and say, yes, whales, we can do whales. Of course, you know, we're fresh over from England where we've done this many, many times. And of course, I found out afterwards that they're relative newcomers and that they were taking a big, bold step.
One of the initial meetings we had with Tim, we were in the office and we were talking about the size of these whales. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, you know, whatever. What size do you reckon that'll be then? And he was sort of looking in this office going, well, yeah, probably about the size of this room. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, shit. You know.
It was a big job that needed to be done in a hurry. The bull whale model alone was 15 meters long. The pod whales were smaller but more complex, with flexible bodies and moving parts that could be manipulated to make the animal look real. Every step had its own problems to overcome, like how do you move a whale that can't swim?
I was walking on the beach one morning and I saw the whale go past on a really big truck, and it was so long that it wouldn't completely fit on the truck, so there's the big whale and its tail was standing up like that. It's really good.
Another central image of the film was an unfinished waka or canoe, inspired by a waka that had been sitting at Whangarā for several years.
I went back to Whangarā and it was gone. I'd written it into the film. You know, the one thing I never thought, you know, that we could kind of create ourselves. Right, it's right there, we'll use it. And it had gone. I said, can we get that waka back? And everybody's faces just fell.
The waka is a concession to directorial requirements. With Grant Major and our design team, we said, well, what will it take to build one of these?
I copied the proportions from the one in the Auckland Museum. We went in there surreptitiously with a ruler, because you're technically not allowed to do that, and we pasted out and kind of measured these little measurements of the thing, and because it, you know, aesthetically, I think that's a very beautiful waka in there. When they started building this thing out of 3x1, I got a bit of a surprise.
Modern techniques were used to build the boat simply to get it done in time. The hull was made from plywood and fiberglass, the ornate carvings from polystyrene coated with a plastic resin. The whole project was completed in just 3 weeks.
I decided that we would have a Maori welcome for the crew, that we would have a blessing on the day, we would launch the canoe on the same day, have a cup of tea and a meal. The unease I had about the whole business was put to rest that night because I felt very happy that they had already established a rapport. We were able to anticipate an eagerness to support each other.
We got 100 of the Kaihoi rowers from Gisborne and said, come, let's hop in, let's see how we go on a test drive. And they very enthusiastically leapt into the surf. And we waited with bated breath on shore to see that it didn't bust in half.
There was a few sceptical opinions about its ability to be able to perform properly at the time, but in the end, at the first day we put it in the tide, it was fantastic. It worked like a charm. It's a beautiful boat.
Something extraordinary happened, and that was that the filmmakers and the community became one.
Gold miner Alpheus Barrington thought his 1863 expedition up the Dart River to the west coast would be dead easy.
If you panic, then you're lost.
He was half right.
Living skeletons, their bones poking through their skin.
No guides, no maps, no possibility of rescue. Explorers, tomorrow on 1.
Darling, wake up.
Yeah, we on? We going?
Oh, no. I've got cravings. Golden roast potatoes.
Anytime's roast potato time with McCain Home Roast Potatoes. A generous serve of real potato that roasts in no time.
Give me the chief of staff.
Where's mine?
I'm McCain. You've done it again.
I call upon all nations to stop these terrorist killers. Now watch this drive.
The New York Times calls Fahrenheit 9/11 scorching. 2 thumbs way up. Everybody should see it. Fahrenheit 9/11.
Is the pain of arthritis getting in the way of enjoying life? Well, here's some important news. It comes in the shape of Vioxx, a significant advance in pain relief. Unlike traditional non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like diclofenac, ibuprofen and naproxen, Vioxx only suppresses the enzymes that cause pain, not those that protect your stomach lining. A clinical trial with Vioxx has shown there's significantly less risk of having perforations, ulcers and stomach bleeds. Vioxx may not suit everyone, so make sure you discuss any liver, stomach, kidney or heart problems with your doctor. Vioxx is a prescription-only, non-subsidized medicine that you have to pay for. It's fast-acting and every bit as effective as traditional NSAIDs. It lasts for 24 hours and you can take it on an empty stomach. There's a lot to enjoy in life with the effective control of arthritic pain. The next time you visit your doctor, ask for a free sample. Together, you may find that Vioxx is right for you.
More design, more choice, more value. Sale is now on in the Tile Warehouse. Be inspired. More styles, more quality for less, more specials, and much, much more. So hurry. Who else?
Qantas. That's the spirit.
Golden Horse. Their album is a classic in the making. So many great songs. Such a brilliant album. It's time you got Golden Horse.
The next time you turn on a light, think about this. All sources of energy have an environmental cost somewhere along the line. Whether it's greenhouse gas, flooded valleys, or even bird kill. Thing is, wind, solar, even hydro are weather dependent, so they don't offer the security of supply we need. they also tend to be expensive. As the environmental cost goes down, the actual electricity price generally goes up. But if we get the balance right, we can keep the lights on and still have so much to see.
Our locations were real. 50 metres away was the marae, and then 20 metres over there was the house. We weren't cheating all the time. Most of the time in filmmaking, you're cheating. You pan across something, and then you pan across something else, and you're pretending it's right next door. But in this case, we could literally pan or track around or crane.
We wanted people to, when they see the film, just to kind of like forget that the frame is there, and they will walk right onto the beach and right into the meeting house and right into the lives of those people. So I think one of the reasons why the film's done so well overseas has been because people have that feeling that they're actually entering a real place.
Shooting began in the spring of 2001, and right from the start, it was clear that this was no ordinary film set.
Everybody took their lunch along and went from place to place and sat and watched it. And if you know anything about films, it's a tedious business. They shoot 10 or 20 times. They were quite patient and sat quietly through. We had a lot of school children come to take part for half an hour to watch from the sandhills and so on. So there was a lot of interest in the actual filming.
We decided, well, all right, we'll go and have a look. And lo and behold, the next thing we know, we were extras. We just standing there, oh, well, it's like the army volunteers. You, and you.
I got used to it, but when I first got down there, it was a bit of a shock. Nikki said that her hardest challenge during rehearsals was getting shoes off my feet.
Well, I've worked in tougher locations. It's not it's not a bad place to go to work every day. Some of my favourite moments were working in that water, just being pushed around by those waves, just getting such an amazing workout and being so exhausted.
With cold. Very, very cold.
Well, that was one of the things I said. Stuff it, I wouldn't have it for as a gift. Being an actor or anything like that, the hell with that. It's too much like hard work.
But as soon as they said cut and we'd go back on the beach, they'd have hot water bottles and towels and hot drinks, and they really looked after us. It was fun, actually.
Anybody that has crews on a feature film will tell you that when you go and shoot a film in a place, the first week everybody's completely in love with you and they're so excited, and the second week they're a little bit bored now, and the third week they really hate your guts and they want the lights off and it's all too noisy, and they're really, really over it, and by the final week they tend to be back in love with you again. Now, this didn't happen on Whale Rider. It was amazing because it felt like every day the film crew and the community fell more in love.
Filming the climactic stranding scenes brought together all the skills of the design and effects crews, as well as the locals who served as extras. With the help of the sea and the weather, and some fearless special effects men, it was finally time for the whales to come to life.
People would climb inside them. You know, they would puppeteer them from the inside with breathing apparatus, because the whales are partly in and partly out of the tide, and with shouted instructions, because you can imagine how difficult it would be to hear.
It was the first time we shot. I remember that I was helping two of the guys come out of one of the whales, and I turned the air off and got these first two out, and then completely forgot about the other two guys that were in the second whale. And I couldn't get out. The whale was too heavy, so we had to. They needed, external help. So by the time we sort of leaned the whale over, they both came out and they were screaming and shouting and gasping for air. And that was just ironing out a few areas there of, but we didn't kill anyone, so it was all right.
What works in that sequence? Everything is put in place to make it work. So the way it's shot, the way the camera moves, and all of that sensitivity is nothing, I don't believe, without those people. And so what you've got is a community of people for whom whales are literally their ancestors. The care with which those people are working with film whales, fiberglass whales, is really humbling. And it introduces the audience to the stranding in a really real and emotional way, and really sets the tone, I think, for what's to follow. And it taught me a great deal about filmmaking and what is really important. And what isn't important is lots of clever tricks.
This speech is a token of my deep love and respect for Koro Apirana, my grandfather.
I mean, that was a really busy day. We had to do all that the concert sequence in that one day. We had 2 cameras. Kevin Riley was operating the other one. He was on a longer lens on a zoom, and we found that was fantastic because one of the cameras ran out of film.
The angle that they wanted the most, the film ran out. Like, can you believe it? And they're swapping film, and it doesn't take, like, 2 minutes. It takes, like, 10 minutes. And Nikki and Stephanie are standing next to me like, keep that feeling, keep crying for the next 40 minutes. I'm like, I can't.
Ka tū te tipua, ka tū te tahito, o I rerehu, tangaroa meha.
And then, they were like, yeah, cut, and Nikki's like, that's great. And everyone's like standing around there all crying. I was like, oh, what's wrong with them? I wasn't sad after that. I was like, yay, it's over. I don't have to cry anymore.
How did Keisha get there? Well, a lot of it is to do with the relationship with Nikki and the faith that she put in Nikki, the trust that she had in Nikki, and the relationship that they developed, which was responsible for Keisha being able to execute those scenes in that way. Because, as I say, Keisha's a terrific actress, but in the hands of a different director, it may have played out quite differently.
We were all stunned when we saw the rushes and saw what was happening. And it was happening so naturally. It was happening almost by, by magic. Somehow or another, the camera just illuminates that face.
And so the first assemblage, I think, was very emotional for the people who sat there and watched it. And there were people crying, and it was a very small group of people who saw it. There were the producers and obviously Nick and Dave and the editing team, and that was it. And people were, oh, I've got something in my eye. I must.
I'm so critical of my own self and the work that I do, so I never let myself believe that, anything's going to be brilliant. But it didn't suck.
Because of the way the film was funded, editing and post-production were completed in Germany, ready for the film's prestigious gala premiere, back home in Gisborne.
When I picked up some of the people from the airport, Nikki and company, she said, what are we going to do? I said, well, we've cordoned off the main street and we're going to go through the side street. And they really laughed their heads off. They said, you're the only one who's ever done that. I said, don't they do this anywhere else?
Looked like hundreds of people in the street, no shoes, big haka as we arrived. I'm loving all of it, and kind of quite freaked out, but quite loving that I'm in the front row with the men, with Parakura Horomia next to me.
It didn't matter if this film went on and did what it what it's gone on to do, if we didn't get that audience, it was a failure.
It's a large cinema. I mean, it can hold, I suppose, about 200 people. There were probably about 300 people in it. There's people everywhere. They're in the aisles. It's total fire hazard. There's babies. It's just wonderful.
It was a laugh because it was like a home movie. You know, in those first few scenes where Whangarā opens up, it was, oh, there's Auntie Bumpy's house and there's so-and-so's house.
Oh, bro, that's my fence. And then, oh my God, Nan, look, that's my doll.
There I am. And that's how they saw it. The Whangarā people were a nuisance.
As the film moved through, they got quieter and quieter, and then I could hear that every single person in that cinema, hundreds of them, were all crying with the film.
Everyone goes quiet, and then, yeah, bro, you're crying, eh? And then there was like, no, I'm not crying, bro. I'm hard.
And at the end, those old women who'd been there all that time, every day, came up and they gave a big hongi, and you just knew, yeah, we did all right.
The last man to come out was an old Kuroa, and he had with him his daughter with one hand and his grandson with the other. And he just came down and he was absolutely speechless with just joy and wonder. And he said to me, these mokopuna wisi, these mokopuna. And, you know, that was quite a moment.
You know, I've seen big men who've never been to the movies before, and they come up to me, you know, they haven't been to the movies for 25 years, because they come up to me and they tell me, they go, yeah, bro, I went to that movie, I seen you, and, oh, you made me wild, that little girl made me cry, bro. I haven't been to the movies for so long. Gee whiz, ice creams cost a lot now, don't they? You know, that's their whole experience, so, you know, that's a winner.
So, Voichi, another series of Game of Two Halves. Boys feeling confident?
Oh, you betcha, Meza. We're talking the 4 biggest bullheads in the country. What else would you expect?
Bit of a tradition between these two teams.
If there is a tradition, better say they hate each other.
Mark Ellis's weight was a bit of an issue last season.
Hey, Daddy, look bloody awful.
King, is jokes funny yet?
No.
Game of Two Halves, tomorrow on 1.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
ANZ was New Zealand's first bank.
Getting to like you, getting to hope you like me.
We've grown up with New Zealand.
We know the place and the people.
That's why all ANZ staff get time off every year to do community work.
Although we might all wear a uniform, we're anything but uniform.
Maybe that's why we've said yes to so many different home buyers.
Farmers.
And businesses.
But then again, we've known each other for 164 years.
Getting to know you.
When I say the word awake, you will find the city hit by an earthquake. Awake.
Nasty surprises. The building process can be full of them. So if you're thinking about building or renovating, best you give the team at Carter's Consulting a call. They can answer all the tricky questions like, do I need a plan? Do I need a permit? Where can I get ideas from? And how do I choose an architect or a builder? So for free, objective advice before you start your next project, call 0800 Building and have a chat to the team at Carter's Consulting. You and I.
Beautiful, isn't it?
That's fantastic.
You Kiwi?
Yeah.
Me too. I've never been here until now, and then about a month ago, this airline ticket just turned up. God. You know, I've taught about this city for 40 years. I must have bored my students rigid.
I don't know. I reckon they would have appreciated it.
You could say thank you. Lotto. Never miss a week, never miss a draw.
Darling, wake up. Yep, we on? We going?
Oh, no. I've got cravings. Golden roast potatoes.
Anytime's roast potato time with McCain Home Roast Potatoes. A generous serve of real potato that roasts in no time.
Give me the cheapest stuff.
Where's mine?
I'm McCain. You've done it again. Sir Robert Winston continues his incredible search to understand what makes us who we are. Child of Our Time, Tuesday on 1.
Discovering Whale Rider was one of those once-in-a-lifetime events. You know, I think probably I'll go to my grave with this little epigram, she discovered Whale Rider, because it was the only year that I ever was programming for the Toronto Film Festival. All day I would look at films in the office, all night I would watch videotapes at home. And I picked up a film by someone I had never heard of. I had not seen Nikki's first film. It wasn't yet finished, so it didn't yet have the titles, it didn't have the final music. It was just one of these video cassettes that had come in, and I thought, well, I'd better take a look. And I popped it in for what I assumed would be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. And I sat there till 2 a.m. riveted to the screen and, you know, went to bed crying. And in the morning, I came into the office and said, well, I've just filled another slot.
And David Coulson got on the internet and he rang me up and he said, have you heard of somebody called B. Ruby Rich? I said, no. And he said, what? I'm going to send you something because it looks like it's the first review of the film.
Whale Rider is an exceptional coming-of-age fable that never cheats its audience, allowing viewers of all ages to rediscover innocence and wisdom, free of cynicism and doubt. Who decided the gods dwelled in the heavens and not in the seas, anyway?
Toronto is the biggest film festival in the world, and it was Whale Rider's first public screening outside New Zealand.
I was there with Nikki and John and Linda, and we were kind of pacing quietly up and down the sidelines in the dark, looking for reactions, seeing nothing, thinking, oh, well, look, we've given it a good old shot, but, you know, this is the way it's going to be for America. Down comes the curtain, and up comes the standing ovation.
People were crying. People could barely speak. And when we were taking the question and answers, a man stood up, and his voice was shaking. He could hardly pronounce the words. And he said, this film makes me proud to be a New Zealander.
And we were like, you know, looking through the lights, we're like, oh, who is it? He's like, my name's Sam Neill. I was like, Sam Neill, I know that name from somewhere.
And I watched people turn around, see it was Sam Neill, and go, this is really funny.
To have people stand up and talk about the film like this was enormously emotional.
That's when you knew that something very important was going to happen with this film, because it had touched audiences in a way that films so rarely do.
The Piano once were Warriors, and Lord of the Rings were our last great calling cards in Hollywood. Now it could be the turn of Whale Rider. It's just won the coveted People's Choice Award at the Toronto Film Festival, an award that in the past has been won by Oscar-winning movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and American Beauty.
And so after that, it was a hot ticket item, and the rest, they say, is history. But, you know, we went to Sundance.
The Sundance Film Festival was established by actor Robert Redford and is considered one of the world's best. A prize here means a film's success in America is almost certain.
I heard that we were going to Sundance when I went to the beach in St Heliers, and I ran into Keisha and she said, oh, we're going to Sundance. And I wasn't part of the act. And I thought, I'm in a movie in Sundance, so I'm off. So I sold my car and took out a loan and took off to Sundance.
I was walking up the road with Rauri and Keisha, and Rauri saw Dustin Hoffman, and he had a complete conniption. He was like a 11-year-old girl. Oh, Dustin Hoffman. And we walked a little bit further. I said, Rauri, go up and pay your respects. I know you want to. And Rauri goes up in this beautiful, very respectful way, just says what an admirer he is of Mr. Hoffman's work. So we get to the screening and it's very packed and there's a big line down the road. And there's funny old Dustin Hoffman with his family. And it's just so charming that he even came.
Yeah, I remember him talking to his kids whenever there was a laugh because he didn't get the Māori jokes. The rest of the audience said and go, what are they laughing at? What did she say? What did he say? What are they laughing at?
We did our Q&A and then there's this sort of, it was this inundation of people kind of coming up to us afterwards, and he was right at the front and he pinched our cheeks like a little old Jewish man. And he said, he looked at us and he said, do you know what you've done? And me and Lava and Keisha going, oh, really? He said, you've made this very, very important film.
The 2003 Audience Award for World Cinema the envelope, please. Got it. The winner is Whale Rider, directed by Nikki Carter.
I remember in Sundance, the first time someone asked me for my autograph. And, you know, I was like standing there and walked out of the cinema after the screening and someone was like, oh my God, Keisha, can I please have your autograph? And I was like, hi, you want my autograph?
After Sundance, the film went on to premiere in London and Australia, with rave reviews all the way.
You fall in love with Keisha, and she's a real heartbreaker, and films don't do that anymore.
Talk about making a girl want to go home. Yeah.
The lightest of touches and an amazing cast.
That was an incredible movie. That was absolutely incredible. Made me proud to be a Kiwi.
I'm really surprised. I mean, I never knew that something like this would happen.
It also won 2 more audience awards at Rotterdam and San Francisco.
The thing that's really significant about it is that it won at a wide range of festivals. Sundance is kind of a very, you know, for America, it's a very hip festival. It's a lot of real film buffs go there, but it's also got a general audience contingent as well. Toronto is a very broad festival, very huge festival. So the fact that it was able to win these awards at very different kinds of festivals, again, says that, well, this is not your ordinary film.
The Audience Award, you know, it goes beyond politics. It goes beyond any sort of agenda that might be at play when awards are given out. And it's just someone who paid their hard-earned money and sat down and were won over and were impressed and is voting for the film simply for that reason.
All of the international interest in the film inevitably led to Hollywood, where there was talk of an Oscar nomination for Keisha's performance.
I was nervous for her because there was such an expectation. I was also a bit offended that the whole campaign was around her being the supporting actress. I didn't see the sense in that.
I turned on television because I was, you know, will she get it, won't she get it? And the first one they read is supporting actress, and she wasn't there. And I thought, you know, well, it was a good dream, you know. And then they read out the best actress. It's just fantastic.
Keisha goes to Hollywood? Of course.
Standing proudly and alone, G.I. Oscar, Glenn Innes Oscar.
Hughes has been plucked from an East Auckland. She's just 30 and has all the elements of a Hollywood
Youngest person ever to be nominated in the Best Actress category.
Chat to Keisha about how she's coping with superstardom.
The whole day I'm talking to these people and, you know, I'm like repeating myself over and over again. And I got to sit down at the end of the day and, you know, me and my mum had a little moment and we both sat down and I looked at her and she looked at me and they both started crying. I was like, I'm not going to cry. There's nothing to cry about.
Hi, Keisha. Hi, Keisha. Well, on the night of the Oscars, they rang me and we had all these people invading us and I rang the cousins again. We'll go to Auntie Bumps down the road. Bring something for a cup of tea, which they did.
Anyway, one said to me, are you going to get anything, Joss? I said, yeah. And they said, what for? I said, oh, I'm getting an Oscar for being the best extra they've ever seen. And of course, she burst out laughing. She knew I was having her on. She said, oh, don't be stupid. I said, well, don't ask a stupid question.
The role I was sitting in, you know, I was sitting next to Diane Keaton, and behind me was like Samantha Morton, and Johnny Depp was just in the second row behind me, and then across was like Nicole Kidman and Renee Zellweger. So everywhere I looked, it was like people I've, you know, watched all my life, and then I was like sitting with them, and I didn't actually know. I felt like I was dreaming, but then it got to my category, and I was like, oh. And I started crying. Like I felt like I was gonna cry. And I think only then it hit me that I'd been nominated, because I mean it'd been there for like, you know, the last month, but I didn't actually think about it. I kind of just put it to the back of my head and went to school and did the same old things everyone else did. So it was, I know, it was very surreal.
I was there mainly to see how close she would come. And I have a funny idea that she, in all ways, came a very close second.
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is a serious respiratory disorder that includes chronic bronchitis and emphysema. The main symptom is breathlessness, often accompanied by coughing, wheezing and coughing up mucus. It's usually following years of smoking. COPD can be extremely debilitating and have a negative impact on people's lives. But here's Mark with some good news.
Spiriva is a treatment designed to help those with COPD feel less breathless when doing everyday tasks. Spiriva works by opening up the airways, making it easier to breathe and reducing your breathlessness. You only need to take Spiriva once every 24 hours using the easy-to-use HandiHaler. So if you're over 50, have a smoking history, cough up mucus and get breathless easily, see your doctor and ask about how Spiriva can help. You can also call 0800 80 89 89 for a free information pack right now. You'll need to pay for Spiriva. However, a free trial should be available. So speak to your doctor now and get back to enjoying life. If you suffer from a medical condition and get into an emergency where you can't speak for yourself, MediCalert may mean the difference between life and death. The MediCalert bracelet you wear will be instantly recognized by emergency staff who'll get immediate access to your vital health information. Just call 0508 707 808 or visit the website. It's simple and it saves lives. So if you or a family member have a medical condition, find out about MediCalert now. A lifetime of peace of mind for only $75. See Family Health Diary magazine.
Looking for a great hotel deal? Try AccorHotels.co.nz with Novotel, Mercure and Ibis Hotels. AccorHotels.co.nz. Book easy, sleep easy.
Look at that.
If you suffer from a life-threatening medical condition, all the care in the world may not be enough if you're not wearing a lifesaver. MediCalert identification. It will alert people to your condition and give them immediate access to your medical history. Free phone 0508 707 808 now about joining MediCalert. Don't wait a minute longer. Be a survivor with MediCalert.
Call Active Finance first.
Active Finance for vehicle finance.
Active Finance for personal loans.
Active Finance for boat finance.
Active Finance for home improvements.
Active Finance. It's finance that comes to you. So call now or apply online.
This here is my Star Wars photo, Star Wars portrait, and it took hours, like 5 hours at the least, to do makeup in here, but it was a great experience. This is Best Actress from the New Zealand Film Awards, and yeah, that's pretty cool. This is my Nickelodeon Wannabe Award. They did a, what they had is, it was just recently, and it also acts as a kaleidoscope. My Guinness World Records certificate, and I was nominated. I'm going to be in the Guinness World Book of Records, I think, next year. because I was the youngest ever Academy nominee in the category of Best Actress in a Leading Role. I was exactly 13 years old and 309 days. This is the big one, I guess. It's my certificate of nomination award, and it's very all fancy and has to be all nice, and the only certificates I ever got were like ones like, you know, great writing at school, so it's a nice thing to have.
I was talking to the German producer the other day, and he said it had won 29 awards, and I said, oh, I wasn't keeping score, and he listed them all.
The film goes somewhere in people's hearts. For some funny reason, they can't get away from it. I think it's because it's not just a story about a young girl and her relationship with her grandfather, because it's the story of every girl who has a relationship with her grandfather. It's also the story of every son who wants to be affirmed by his father.
And so you just see this through line from the relationship to, you know, human and God, to father and child, and I think that just strikes a very visceral chord in people across race, across class, across all sorts of boundaries.
What Nikki did was to make a film from basically a book written for children and a book with what might be regarded as fantasy elements, and then create a text, a film that was real.
The film just makes you believe that this has happened, you know, and it's a wonderful thing to believe. That's why people love the film, because we're delighted to believe that. We want to believe something like this can happen. One of the reasons we go to the movies is to have that experience, and so often we don't get it, or it's so kind of sugar-coated that we don't really believe it, or they play treacly music behind it, or they do something that kind of corrupts the pure sensation that we want to get out of moments like that. And Whale Rider does none of that. It just manages to keep it pure, yet be incredibly moving.
I think it's honest. I think it knows what it is. It didn't try to dumb itself down. It didn't set out to win a big audience. It set out to win that audience in whangara.
See, this was the incredible journey, wasn't it? The fact that this film made it internationally, and number two, they actually got there in terms of an Oscar nomination.
It's kind of worrying that, I mean, you know, I guess set myself so high, and, you know, the next film people will be expecting, you know, that level. And, I mean, it's interesting, but, I mean, I guess I can only do my best, and I can only try my hardest, and if it doesn't get to that level, then so be it.
Everywhere in the world that I go, somebody really unexpected will find out that I've done it. You know, the guy in the video store in a tiny town in northern Minnesota who has so connected to the story of Pi and the story of Paikea. I mean, that is truly a success to me. I doubt I will experience anything like it again in my lifetime. So I'm very grateful to have been part of this film.
Sound speed. Sound speed. And action. Rolling. Action. Sound speed. Action.